Well, hi, everybody. We're here again with the CommTALK podcast by BVS Film Productions. Today, I have a really special guest, someone that I'm really glad was able to come onto our show. His name is Bob Burg. He is a Hall of Fame speaker, co-author of the international bestseller, The Go-Giver, which has sold over 1 million copies and is translated into 30 different languages. Bob, it is so great to have you here.
Thanks, Dan. Great to finally get a chance to speak with you in person.
Yeah,
Online as it may be.
right, exactly. It was funny because I've known you through a client of mine that you were on his podcast, and I
Yeah.
said, you know what, I got to go read that book, The Go-Giver, and I read it, and I'm like, wow, this is really something. A lot of things overlap, but a lot of things were new that just kind of opened my eyes, which is
Yeah. Well,
amazing.
John David Mann, my awesome co-author and really the lead writer, storyteller, one of the things we found right from when the book first came out is that uh, and we always said there's nothing new in there, right? I mean,
Yeah.
universal laws and principles are universal laws and principles. And so many of the people who, like you, who, related to the book, it wasn't that you learned new things. You simply related to what was there that you were already doing for a long time.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that was really the first wave of people who kind of adopted the book and passed it along. It was those who said, "Oh yeah, okay, yeah, this is what I've been doing."
Right, exactly. So, yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe the premise of this book. I think that's really the whole thing.
Yeah, well, the premise itself is very simple, and it's simply that shifting your focus, and we believe that's really where it all begins, shifting your focus from getting to giving. Now, constantly and consistently providing immense value to others.
Yeah.
Understanding that doing so is not only a more fulfilling way of conducting business, it's the most financially profitable way as well. And not for any kind of way out there woo-woo type of magical mystical type of reasons, not at all. It actually makes very rational, very logical sense, and that is when you're that person who can move your focus off of yourself and onto serving others, discovering their needs, their wants, their desires, making it about solving and helping them to solve their problems and challenges, moving off yourself and on to moving them closer to happiness. Well, people feel good about you. They feel great about you. They want to get to know you. They like you. They trust you. They want to be in relationship with you. They want to do business with you when that's appropriate. And they want to tell the world about you. They want to be your personal walking ambassador.
Right. And Tom Hopkins and Zig Ziglar, they say you give enough people what they want, you'll get exactly what you want in life. So this kind of follows that theme all the way through.
Those two were great teachers of mine. When I first started in sales 40 years ago, their books were the first two I read.
Yep.
Back then it was cassette tape albums
Oh,
were the first ones I bought. They were the first ones whose seminars I went to. So
yeah.
they
Oh, yeah.
certainly are just legends and icons in the space.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and so in the Go Giver, you say something about totally congruent with human nature. Maybe you can kind of, open up on that a little bit. Tell us a little bit.
Yeah, well, and there's two aspects to this. One is understanding that people, and I think Dale Carnegie, by the way, said really explored this very deep. In fact, I believe the following was Dale Carnegie's underlying premise of his classic How to Win Friends and Influence People. And this is where he wrote that ultimately people do things for their reasons, not our reasons.
Yeah.
And when I used to go all over speaking at sales conferences and so forth, I'm 66 now, so I don't travel anywhere anymore
Mhm.
to speak. But when I used to, and I always enjoyed it, I'd be in a room in front of a whole bunch of salespeople, and the first thing I'd say is, nobody's going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet.
Right.
They're not going to buy from you because you have a sales goal or because you need the money
Yeah.
or even because you're a nice person. They're going to buy from you because they believe that ultimately they will be better off by doing so than by not doing so.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's understanding human nature. And we disregard that at our sales peril. Okay. Now, so that's one aspect. It's understanding human nature. It's honoring human nature, which is what the go-giver does. But there's another aspect of human nature, and that is practically every salesperson. Now, I'm not going to say everyone because it's a big world. There's people who do things we don't necessarily agree with and so forth. But most salespeople and most entrepreneurs, they have a burning desire to serve others. Now, we tend to do this mainly through our product or service. It doesn't mean you can't be involved in other causes or things, but basically through our businesses, our products. That's how we add value to the world. Okay, in
Right.
the
Yeah.
business sense.
Yeah.
So because of that, and you put that element of human nature together with the one about why people buy, and it simply means that when you operate as a go-giver, meaning you are focusing on what you can do for this person's benefit, right? For that person,
Mhm.
well, you're actually going right with, not against, but with human nature. And that's why people who sell the go-giver way, or lead the go-giver way, or what have you, are typically so successful.
Right, right. And you know what? The more I was reading it, I looked at it as like there's several paths to the promised land. Tom and I in our book we talk about that as like the promised land for the sales team. Once you're in that area, you have trust. There's value. There's no question about are you available? Are you good at what you're doing? You've already met that level. And it seems like this is a different path. I still think there's techniques involved that are needed in sales, but boy, the
Sure.
mindset behind this it's really not only unique to a lot of salespeople, but it's something that really, really stands out and it makes you think about it, which is important.
Yeah, and so let's pick up on that because I think you make a very very important point. You say, well, what makes the great salespeople great? Okay,
Mhm.
is it product knowledge? Well, great salespeople certainly have wonderful product knowledge, but so do a lot of very average salespeople. Now, is product knowledge important? Absolutely,
Yeah.
in the game.
Mhm.
What about what about sales skills, those techniques, right? Based on principles, but still sales techniques and so forth. Do great salespeople know the sales technique? Absolutely, but actually, so do a lot of very average
Right.
salespeople. Okay.
Hmm.
So are they important? Absolutely. They're just not what distinguishes the great salesperson.
Yeah.
Okay. What really seems to do that, and Dr. Adam Grant, behavioral psychologist at Wharton, who has written like 4 or 5 fantastic books. The first of them was Give and Take, which went very deep into human nature and the psychology of such. He cites in his book a research of the top, in this case, most financially successful financial advisors in Australia.
Mhm.
Okay. And what was it that made them such sustainably high money earners? Okay. Now, they all had great product knowledge and financial acumen, of course.
Yeah.
They all knew the sales techniques. But what separated them, and what I, believe separates it, no matter what field, is the difference maker is that they absolutely put the interests of their prospective customers and clients first.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's the difference maker because again, that's the only reason they're going to buy from you, that they're going to do business with you. And so it means that at every single touch point, from the moment you meet that person, whether it's inbound, outbound, whether you've met them in person or online or on the phone, so from the initial contact through the relationship building process, the follow up, the follow through, the sales process, the referral process, every aspect. How do you make them feel about themselves? Right.
Right.
And so when you provide that ultimate experience, if you will, that's what distinguishes. And again, that does not in any way diminish product knowledge. That's important. It does not in any way diminish sales technique.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's it. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, great stuff. Um, so you know, I think some people would feel uncomfortable with this, especially salespeople that maybe not aren't highly skilled in this. So, what would you say to them on, how they can become comfortable with this? Especially if they have like big quotas, a lot of pressure. I know that can come into play as well.
Uh, in other words, Dan, this go-giver stuff, focusing on others, is fine, after I already have the money and don't really need it. But,
Right.
for right now, I need the money. So I need to be focusing on getting the money,
Yeah.
right? Okay,
Hmm.
so let's look at this and let's look at the premise that's based on. Okay. What that's saying is if you really want to make a lot of money and make it fast, don't focus on providing value to the customers. Focus instead on the money you want them to give you. Now, I don't know about you, but I never found in my sales career that caused people to want to buy from me. So again, it goes back to they're not doing business because you need the money. So here's the thing. And so let's say we're talking to a new salesperson about this. And again, they don't get this yet. Well, first, this is where the relationship comes into play with them, where the more of a know, like, and trust relationship with them we have, and the way we're able to tactfully and diplomatically suggest this to them, the easier it's going to be for them to buy into it. So, it might be saying something to this person like, Pat, I just, really admire your work ethic and your knowledge of the product and your desire to really succeed. Would you be open to me sharing a couple of ideas with you that will take you from where you are right now, which is great potential, to where you could be, which is really earning the kind of income you'd like?
Yeah.
Boom. Now, probably they're going to say, yeah, sure, because of the way you asked, tied
Right.
into what they're looking for. So now we're going to go through a little exercise, right? And we might say, so Pat, I want you to pretend that we're in a sales conversation. I'm the salesperson, and you are the prospective customer or client. Now, I really need the money. Okay, so I'm not going to so much focus on you as much as getting the money, from you. And then after I make a lot of money, I'll do this go giver thing. But for right now, I'm just focused on what I need to get. So now we're going to start the sales conversation. I'm going to ask you some questions because I've been trained to do that. But I'm not so much listening in order to really understand what you need, want, and desire. It's more so that I have enough information to kind of sharp angle you into a close later on. Okay. When you have an objection, uh, yeah, I'm going to certainly answer it, but I'm a little bit defensive because your objection's standing in the way of my money. And so you're going to kind of sense probably that, yeah, it just wants to kind of convince me that this is okay. And rather than getting deep into the actual heart of the objection, I'm going to give you the answer that I've learned for this kind of objection. Now, I'm also going to be closing early and often because, well, I need the money. I need to, now at the end of our sales conversation, are you more likely or less likely to feel good about doing business with me right now? And now, if they don't right away say, no, less likely, I'll say, most people would probably say less likely. And
Mhm.
I will agree. Okay. Now, let's say same situation. I'm a new salesperson. I need the money. Have the same. Now, I'm not going to deny my self-interest because, first of all, as human beings, we're all self-interested, right? So, successful people live in truths. They don't deny the truths, but they don't let the truths hold them back either, right? They work within those truths in order to advance the process. So,
Mhm.
I'm not going to deny my self-interest, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it to the side
Yeah.
because I realize that my self-interest is going to serve neither the customer nor me,
Yeah.
my family. Okay. So I'm going to focus on you. So I'm going to ask questions and I'm going to be listening. Right. I'm going to do what Dr. Covey told us, listen to seek to understand. Right.
Mhm.
And I'm going to also, realizing that we're different people and come from different belief systems and put different values on different things. I'm going to make sure that even after you answer and tell me something, I'm not going to assume I know what you mean by what you said. So I'm going to tactfully and diplomatically ask you to explain further and go deeper. So I really know. I'm going to
Mhm.
think about what insights I can add that may help you notice maybe a weakness you don't know you have, so we can help fortify it, or an opportunity you don't realize you have that through our product or service can help you expand on that, and so forth. And mainly by the time we're through, well, let's say this. So you're understanding from the start that I'm interested in you and how I can best serve you. Now, when you have an objection, I'm going to welcome it. And I'm going to assure you it's great that you asked, because you need to feel comfortable with this process if we're going to be able to go ahead and get together on this. But I'm not going to assume I know really what you mean by the objection, because a lot of times they don't even know what they mean by they just know there's something. But we go through the process all the time. They don't, so they don't always know. So what we're going to do, instead of trying to overcome your objection,
Mhm.
we're going to work within your objection and kind of go back together as partners to really understand the root cause of
Yeah.
your since you then we're going to, again, in partnership, work through it in order to advance the sale.
Mhm.
Now, by the time, because I did such a great discovery session, listened so well, and through my questioning allowed you, as my friend Jeff West would say, allowed you to tell yourself what you needed to know,
Mhm.
right? Instead of me telling you, you told yourself what you needed to hear, what you did, right? By the time I ask you to take action, I'm simply asking you to do so on something that you've already told me
Yeah.
you want to do. But
Mhm.
more than anything, you know, and you know that I have your well-being at heart. Are you more likely or less likely to want to do business with me right now? And I think most people would say,
Yeah. And
but
you know
that,
what? It's funny because you can sense it. You just like when I get sold to, you're getting sold to. You can just sense that difference right
yeah,
away. And it's spider senses go up. You start backing off. And in sales, I know what they're doing and I know why they're doing it. But a lot of people they feel uncomfortable, but they don't know why. You know,
yeah,
and that's
exactly.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree completely. Um, so, you talk about the five laws. And what are those laws?
The five are the laws of value, compensation, influence, authenticity, and receptivity. The law of value, as we alluded to earlier, is all about the experience you provide that person throughout the process. So, aside from just the intrinsic value of your product or service, which again must be much more than what they're paying for, that's economic law. People will exchange their money for that which is of greater value than the money they're exchanging it for. It's also about making their experience so spectacular that they feel great about the entire process. So they profit because they're getting more than what they paid for, but you as the salesperson also profits because what you're selling cost you less than what you're selling it for. In fact, in any free market-based exchange, and when I say free market, I simply mean no one's forced to do business with anyone else. In any market-based exchange, there are always two profits: the buyer profits and the seller profits, because each one comes away better off afterwards than they were beforehand. That's
Mhm.
basically the law of value. Now, law number two, the law of compensation, says your income is determined by how many people you serve
Mhm.
and how well you serve them. So it's not just the value, that's the foundational principle, but it's also how many lives, Dan, do you impact with that value?
Yeah.
So you take, exceptional value plus significant reach, and that equals very high compensation. Law number
Mhm.
three, the law of influence, says your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. No, not in a way that's self-sacrificial or martyrish or doormat. No, not at all. It's understanding, and we alluded to this earlier, that as Joe, the protege in the story, learned from several of his mentors, the golden rule of business says all things being equal or close enough to equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. And there's no faster, more powerful, or more effective way to elicit those feelings toward you, right, from others, than by genuinely moving from that I focus or me focus to that other focus, looking to, as Sam, one of the mentors in the story, advised Joe, make your win all about the other person's win.
Yeah.
Law number 4, the law of authenticity, says the most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. In this part of the story, Deborah shared a lesson she had learned that was very helpful to her, that all the skin, we were talking about this earlier, right? All the skills in the world, the sales skills, technical skills, people skills, as important as they are, and indeed they are very, very important, they're also all for naught if you don't come at it from your true, authentic core. But
Right.
do when you show up as yourself day after day, week after week, month after month, people not only feel good about you, they feel comfortable with you, and they feel safe with you because they know who they're getting. Now, I'll say one thing about authenticity. I think that, and maybe this is since the advent of and proliferation of social media, I think the term has sort of gotten a little skewed. Authenticity now has almost come to mean no boundaries. Just say or do whatever you want, whenever you want, and don't worry about who you offend and blah, 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 because, well, it's authentic. So that, I kind of disagree. Well, I don't kind of, I very much respectfully disagree with that premise. This would be like the person who says, well, I have anger issues and I yell at people a lot. And if I were to act any differently, that wouldn't be authentic of me.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of malarkey. I think what it means is this person has an authentic problem that he needs to authentically work on in order to become a better, higher, more effective, authentic version of
Yeah.
himself. So, we don't want people to misinterpret authentic as meaning, don't grow. That's just my excuse to stay where I am, but use it as an impetus to become that higher version. My definition of authenticity is very simple. It's simply acting congruently with your values. And I think as long as we do that, we're on the right track in that regard.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the last one's the law of receptivity. And this one says the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. Well, this means nothing more than understanding that, yeah, you breathe out, you also have to breathe in. It's not one or the other, it's both. You breathe out carbon dioxide, you breathe in oxygen. You breathe out, which is giving, you breathe in, which is receiving.
Mhm.
Giving and receiving are really simply, they're not opposite concepts. They're two sides of the very same coin. They work in tandem. Now, unfortunately, the world around us gives us a horrible, I think, anti-prosperity message.
Yeah.
And so, you'd think, gosh, anybody who does well financially did it on the backs of others or through nefarious means. Now, again, it's a big world. People do things in ways, but by and large, and especially to the degree you operate in a marketplace where no one's forced to buy from you, the only way you can profit is by providing immense value to the lives of lots of people. And it's
Yeah.
always about them, right? You need to be authentic in how you're doing it, and you need to be able to then receive. But so much of it is getting past the mental blocks of being able to receive, which is why I'm a big believer. While John and I touched on it in this chapter in the book, we certainly don't go into detail on it, but there's fortunately a lot of great authors, speakers, practitioners on the topic just of prosperity and abundance. There's, people like Randy Gage and Bob Proctor, late Bob Proctor, Lisa Peterson, fantastic work.
Mhm.
Ellen Rogan, Sharon Lecter, Ken Honda, David Nagel. I mean, there's some, and my feeling is read their blogs and listen to their podcasts and watch their videos, because what they talk about, very little of it is the how-to aspect. Really, it's the mindset.
Yeah.
It's that, and it's replacing the garbage anti-prosperity message with those good, healthy, pro-abundance, pro-prosperity messages, and it's really working through our unconscious beliefs that often keep us from receiving what we really deserve.
I totally agree. And you know what? It's not just in the sales world. This can go everywhere. I started doing one thing I got really golden nugget I got out of this was I started doing it with vendors. I stopped treating vendors like vendors, and they are opportunities in addition to being a vendor, and opportunities to build relationships. And I saw a lot of unique things out of that.
Yeah. Your vendors are also stakeholders,
Right,
and
right.
they're also friends, and they're also human beings.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't think of them that way, especially when they're coming at you, 50 at a time on your emails, how do you filter those? But if you're nice to all of them,
Yeah.
don't give the farm away.
Yeah.
Don't give a half hour to each one of them, but just a little time, talk, work your way through it. You can find those right people that you want to work with, which is nice. So, wrapping up, we're closing a little bit. If there was anything you'd like to tell a new salesman, maybe that one thing that you could tell someone new in business, new in sales, what would that one thing be that they could take to the bank?
Yeah, I think it might be something that an old mentor said to me. I consider him a mentor, even though it was just one piece of advice.
Mhm.
Call him one of my other life mentors. Her name is Dondi Sumachi. She and I would talk, and I think she coined the term drive-by mentor, and I probably agreed with it because she's so brilliant. So I usually just agree because it's always agreeable. And a drive-by mentor is that person who just happens to show up at that right time. You may know them indirectly, or you may never have met them, or you might be just in a conversation. You might just hear something, but they happen to say the exact right thing that you needed to hear at the exact right time.
Mhm.
At the exact right time, you were ready to receive it. And I remember I was in a sales slump about 2 years in. I was in a sales slump, and the more of a slump I was in, the more I was focused on myself and getting out of the slump. Well, we know that people don't buy to get Bob Burg out of a slump, right?
Right.
And I was really, but so this guy who was in the company that I was working for, he wasn't in the sales department. I think he was an engineer. And he was one of these guys. I didn't know him real well, but he's one of these real quiet people who didn't say much, but whenever he did, it was, pretty profound. And so I think he saw me as that guy, sort of like Joe and the Go-Giver that I would write about with John David Mann 20 years, 25 years later, whatever it was. But he saw me as that kind of young, up and coming, ambitious, aggressive, but whose focus was wrong. And he said to me, Berg, he was a last name kind of guy. He said, Berg, can I give you some advice? I said, yes, please do. I need it. And he said, if you want to make a lot of money in sales, he said, don't have making money as your target. Your target is serving others. Now, when you hit the target, he said, you'll get a reward. And that reward will come in the form of money. And you can do with that money whatever you choose. But never forget, he said, the money is simply the reward for hitting the target. It's not the target itself. Your target is serving others. And what that said to me was great salesmanship is never about the salesperson, right? Great salesmanship is never about the product or service, as important as those are. This is not what it's about. Great salesmanship is about the other person. It's about that person whose life you're trying to add value to. Or we could even more accurately say, it's about that person whose life becomes better just because you are part of it. And I think that when we begin with that premise in mind as a new salesperson, right? I think now we begin, 9 steps ahead of the game in a 10-step game.
Wow, powerful. And so true. So true. Well, Bob, it has been absolutely fantastic having you on our show. How can people find you?
The best way is just to go to burg.com. And while they're there, if they like, they can subscribe to my free Monday through Friday daily impact email. And there's lots of other resources on that page.
Outstanding. Well, again, great to have you on our show and look forward to getting this out shortly so many can benefit from it.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate you.